Good afternoon. Welcome to Usability Testing, Wednesday, week 12. I hope your week is good. I feel like it's been a while that we've had an actual topic or a session. We had several labs. So today the topic is accessibility. What is web accessibility or accessibility? Developing empathy for accessibility in people that have impairment. So it's really an overview. There is a lot of material, or there are a lot of readings. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at any of the material that I have created and posted for this class. There is quite a lot. And but tomorrow there'll be time for lab, and there is an assignment for accessibility, which is worth 15% of your mark. And I do not expect all of you to become accessibility expert. The goal is to really develop empathy and understand better what accessibility is, and take into account accessibility into your design. And some people, that's what they do. They actually specialize in accessibility. And I was very early exposed to accessibility when I worked at Rogers in 1995. I was supporting the information system for call center, and 1 and 2 of our call centers were blind. So they were using a screen reader, a system called JAWS, and it is one of the screen readers that I have mentioned to you in this week. And it really allowed me to have a completely different view of if you were visually impaired and you can't even read. And there are different degrees. You can be blind, or you can have maybe you need magnifier and you need bigger text and letter and size of letters so that you can see, and contrast as well is very important. But the being aware of the challenges that someone who's blind using JAWS and what it means from navigation is really is a major eye opener. And there are laws, there are different legislations for accessibility to make sure that everybody has accessibility and access to the content, whether they have blindness, whether they can't hear, or they have difficulty reading and seeing, and also motor, like cognitive or and also motor skills, not being able to use a keyboard, or any limitations. So that is really the topic for today. Humber has to be accessible, and we also, and I would say that in Canada, we have multiple legislation that I will be sharing with you as well. And then at Humber, we have to be accessible. Blackboard has to be accessible, and we also have regulations to follow for accessibility in the building, obviously. And our recording have to have closed captioning so that someone who is not able to hear can actually read. So all of my video and the recording are downloaded to YouTube channel, so that if we have students in our class that are using a device or can't listen, then they can actually read the class through closed captioning. YouTube has, from the moment that you have a YouTube channel, so I think this is probably good for you to know, if you do have videos, if you have a website, and then you have videos on your website, and you have the option to make the video available on the YouTube channel. So in fact, if you work for a business, you probably have a YouTube channel that you could upload your videos from your website. You may be linking to your YouTube channel for videos, or when you post on social media on the YouTube channel. As soon as you load a video on your YouTube channel, and and it takes a few days, Google will add the closed caption on them. So you do not need to do anything except to upload the video, and then suddenly, a few days after being posted, you will see the closed caption. So do we have anyone in the class that has experience with accessibility, or has worked with accessibility, or has designed with accessibility in mind? Do we have anybody in class that has experience? I would like to hear if we do. What do we know about accessibility? What have we heard about accessibility when we've heard accessibility in the past? I'm just loading the class lecture. I see that someone has put something in chat. I will come to you. Okay, good. So great to hear that you have all learned a little bit of it, but I don't think that there are any courses that has a specific requirement or assignment when it comes to accessibility. So I think this class, and I think this is new, I think it's new that accessibility has been added and there's an assignment component to accessibility in this class. So you are making history, I suppose, when it comes to accessibility for Humber. Okay, so I have created a PowerPoint that we will be able to review and look over as a class. Now, before I do this, I want to share the content that we have this week on Blackboard. So week 12, we have 2 weeks left. So accessibility is today, and the next week will be Open Lab, and the week 14, the last week, the class presentation to present very high level your findings from the usability testing for findings for roots. So for this week, we have lesson slides. So I have the lesson slides, the deck that I will be showing you. The main learning objective for this week is to understand accessibility, develop empathy, understand the benefits, and also conduct an audit, which you will have lab time. I have multiple ratings. So accessibility, WGAD, and then EDAT. So those are acronyms. I do explain the acronyms further in the PowerPoint. I have another easy chat, a few review of web accessibility, and it's under the W3C, the Web Accessibility Initiative, how to conduct accessibility audit on WordPress. WordPress is a content management system. Some of you may end up using WordPress as a content management system, but it may be relevant, but you will find material that is also relevant just overall for accessibility. And then web accessibility, audit, interactive accessibility. So just another way or another reading that talks about accessibility that I thought you would appreciate. I have also a link to a demo site before and after demonstration of or overview. And it's pretty cool. So I don't know if I'll have a chance to show you that particular link, but what it does, let me just show you quickly. So it has an intro, but then it shows you a site. So it shows you a site that they've done accessibility audit, and then they've implemented the changes. But you can see what was before and then what was after, so that if you're visual and you like to see on an actual site what some of these elements will actually look like, it's pretty well done because it gives you annotation and it gives you exactly what happened. So images have to have alt tags. We're going to learn that. And it shows you this image had no clear explanation of what the image was. So you see frequent ones, but we don't know what the image is about. And I would assume that they have added something in the alt tag that says frequent when playing on stage. So that is an accessibility requirement, is having alt tag text, which you are probably already familiar with if you've said that you've heard about accessibility. But I really like this site because it goes in details of what they have done, and then you can click and see what was wrong, and then how they fixed it and how they improved it. I think it's pretty cool. And then accessibility tools. So there are tools that you can actually add extensions on Chrome if you use Chrome or even Safari. So there are tools to assess some specific dimension of accessibility. We're going to learn the dimension. Color contrast, keyboard accessibility. So contrast is very, very important, right? You're having enough contrast between text so that you can differentiate text from background is very important. It's even sometimes a challenge for us who can actually see on screen. Imagine if someone is having things are blurry and they need to have something bigger. That is a challenge. There are tools that exist, and there's actually also extension that you can install on Chrome that you can be on a site and say, show me what the color contrast analyzer will tell me. And then Wave is one of those extensions. Actually, Wave will pretty much look at most dimension like color contrast, alt tag, code, sniffer. So that will all make sense as we go through more, but you may want to install the Wave and use the Wave for your audit. and the code sniffer as well. We'll look at code. The code is so important. So if I can think of accessibility in a nice way that I would define accessibility, accessibility is pretty much everything that happens behind the screen, from a code, from a system, from the technology. And we're lucky, we're very fortunate because we can see on screen and we can actually go use our mouse and go to a specific element and say, this is what I want to do. I want to go to the HTML code sniffer and click on it. But if you do not see, or if you have no access to a view, then you're very dependent on your keyboard, or you're dependent on the system to read to you what the options are. And then the options will depend on where your focus is for your keyboard and your cursor at this point. So what if my focus is on share blank whiteboard in Blackboard, but I want to go to HTML sniffer? If you think of me as being blind and using a reader that will actually tell me where I am at this point, what if my cursor is on share files and I want to go to HTML code sniffer as a teacher? And I'm depending on the software that will tell me, first of all, he'll say, Eve, you're under share files, you are on the files, accessibility. Now I want to go to HTML code sniffer. Then the system will say, how do I even know where HTML code sniffer is from a system? So I am obviously not a user of those screen reader, for example, if I have blindness. But how do I go from the cursor or the focus being on my file right now and move to HTML code sniffer to be able to show you that specific section if I'm not seeing anything? So imagine the cognitive load that you as an individual have. And they don't have the luxury to know where HTML code sniffer is. I do not even know if they are able to actually type code sniffer. Perhaps they can use voice and say code sniffer. And then maybe the HTML will give them, or maybe the screen ruler will say code sniffer, link, page link, and then they'll maybe have an option to say yes, to say no, and accept. So imagine the navigation and going to. So that's one. The second thing is, if I want to go, so if I'm on the screen reader is reading right now, Blackboard, and the cursor is, or the focus is on code sniffer, and I want to go to iOS gesture cheat sheet under assistive technology, let's say that I do know at this point that I can just tab. Then I'm going to tab until I hear iOS gesture cheat sheet and know that this is what I need. And the system has to tell me as someone who is blind and reading the reader that I can actually click on it. It has to read you the element, and it also has to tell you that it's something that you can click on. Imagine how complicated it is. So we all use websites, and we know that, and we've been talking about how do we improve usability of a website, and we have challenges. Imagine if you're depending on one of those tools, screen reader, keyboards, or reading. It's 10, I would say 10, 20, 50, 100 times worse than the small usability challenge that we have of getting to some of the content, I would say. So that is really what we've meant by building empathy and the challenge and the limitation that that someone who's using, for example, a screen reader is actually facing. It's humongous. There are different testing tools that I also loaded for you. So those testing tools are specifically when it comes to keyboard. So if you want to test that someone is dependent on their keyboard, then that little PDF will help you. So you will have to pick for the assessment one aspect that you would like to really focus on your audit. As I said, there's so much to accessibility, contrast, keyboard, navigation, screen reader as well, that, or screen magnifier, that you may want, that you will have to pick and then go a little bit deeper on. So if keyboard is one of them, this is what you would do: screen reader, screen magnifier, speed, text to speed. And then there's also some documentation about assistive technology. So JAWS is one of the screen reader. And then there are others in here that you can also have, you can either Google or search on if you want. And they also have specific commands. So if you're using one of those tools, then they have specific commands as well that you would actually be able to tell the tool. And then I share with you an audit sample and example of a report. It's only for reference. I don't expect your audit to look like this because you're obviously not going to do a full audit, but it's there for your reference if you ever need to hire a business to do a site audit on your site. Then you would have a sense of what a template would look like. But I do not expect you to have a report template as large than what you will do for your assignment. Then we're going to have some time for the lab, but we do not need to think about the lab at this point. So I'm going to now move back to the actual deck that I have prepared. And then we can learn more about accessibility. So before we do this, are there any questions or anything that I just said that has triggered a question or something specific that you want to ask me? Great. So accessibility. Why is accessibility important? As designer, we have to create content for all users. So I would say most of what we've done, most of what we've talked in class so far has been about people that do not have visual or hearing or motor or cognitive challenges. So we've been designing for people that can see, that people can hear, people that can use a mouse, and people that can just navigate by seeing and clicking and finding their way through. So when there is a law to make sure that whenever everything that we do is actually accessible for people that have impairments. So some studies, and that will help the user experience, not only for someone who has impairment, but most of the guidelines that are suggested for accessibility, I would say, will actually benefit for a better experience, all of us. From a navigation, from a getting access, and then other benefits that people that have done accessibility website, they've noticed that the sites have a better ranking on search results. I don't know if, I think I may have mentioned search engine optimization. So search engine optimization, there's one element, one aspect of search engine optimization which has to do with this technology and the setup of your website. So the setup of your website, and if you don't have good setup, if Google is not able to read the content, if Google is not even able to navigate your site, and again, you can think of Google and the Google algorithm as a backend, so behind the wall, behind the curtain. So Google looks at code. Google doesn't look at the interface as we do. Google looks at codes. He looks at coding and pieces of code, and then he goes through your site and read the codes, read the headers, will read the content, will read the code, the specific language, which the screen reader will often do as well. So if you are allowing, or if the screen reader can easily access your content, then it will most likely also help Google to actually access your content as like a screen reader will do. And that is really, really beneficial for search engine optimization too. If Google is not able to get through your content, then he's not going to be able to even read your content. And sometimes Google will come to like pages that are actually not accessible. He's not able to pass that page and pass the code. Maybe the code is broken. So it will only benefit not only the people that have that are dependent on the tool or a screen reader, for example, but it will help Google to actually better crawl your website. You may have heard. You will be able to reach to a bigger audience. We have more and more people who actually have some impairment. It will load faster too, because quite often it will force you to do maybe some cleaning on your code and fix your code and maybe reduce the density of your code and improve the code, and which will most likely improve your download times. Also, when your time to download a page or upload a page is lower, search engine optimization is improved too. It's one of the components for SEO, search engine optimization. And as we said, it forced the coder, the developer, to do good quality coding. And it's also the law. So the fines, I don't have the exact details of the fines, but I would assume that they're pretty high when it comes to accessibility. So impairments that can affect access to your digital product or any product, visual impairment, audit, mobility, cognitive, and we've always heard of usability being reducing the cognitive load. for the most common individual that are coming to our site, but there are other types that need more attention. And of course, then one can have a combination, right? Some visual and some auditory or some mobility impairment as well that we need to design for. I have given you some list of resources to different legislations. This is a really difficult word to say for me as the French Quebecois speaking. The W3 organization, the WED, AIM, some of them are Canadian, some of them are US, but I think the ones at the top are Canadians. There's a barrier-free Canada as well, so that there's everything that we do is barrier-free. There's also accessibility for Ontario with Disability Act. So there's Canadian, federal, there's provincial, and I've put Ontario, but if you're in Quebec or BC, you're gonna have another set of law as well. And then there's also American Disability Act if you ever work with US. But in terms of which legislation do we follow, I think that from the moment, at least with, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of CASL, the Canadian Anti-Spam Law, which is also a regulation for spamming for email. To know who it applies to is if you have a server, like an email server in Canada, the CASL law applies. So it doesn't matter if your business is American, but if you use email server in Canada, you have to be CASL compliant. So perhaps it's the same thing with accessibility. If your business is established in Canada, then you have to be compliant. If you're in Ontario, then you probably have, and if it's registered, you have to follow the Ontario. Why is it important? Because, well, I think accessibility is not any really different than usability. We are not the user. So there are a group of users that have impairment that we need to support. I'm not going to go in more details, but we are by far not we are not representative of the user that have those impairment that we need to support. So as I said, we're not going to make you of an expert, but it's developing empathy. And one of the recommendations, and I've learned so much when I was at Rogers, and I would actually sit down with Marcella. I think her name was Marcella. She would actually have my direct line at the time. I don't think we had email in 1995, but she had my direct phone line, and she will call me. And when she would come to a page that she could not even understand and her reader would not understand, she would actually really be on me. But I spent a lot of time with her and actually even listening to call when she was taking calls and see how she used JAWS to be able to develop even more empathy. So if you ever have that opportunity, if you are interested in doing more accessibility and pursuing accessibility, there are tons of resources that are available online. So when you think of the accessibility and the regulations and the topics and the elements that you have to pay attention to, they tend to fall in 4 groups of topics. So perceivable, can someone see or read or have access to the content, or images or content or section? So you'll see those items are under being perceivable. There's also being able to operate, being able to navigate, being able to go through your site without keyboards if I don't have a keyboard, or if I only have a keyboard. If I don't have a mouse, I don't have a keyboard, and I'm forced to tab. What is that experience? Being able to understand as well what is being presented to you, and being robust as well, so that you can actually be compliant and also adapt, so that your software can adapt to the screen reader or the technology that is presented there. Typically, the web developer, the developers, the ones that will actually do your code, are aware of accessibility. I think they're being taught accessibility. The code is so big, so important, that they have some notion of accessibility, but you probably don't want to leave it up to them to make decisions. And this is why, because for medical reasons, we know, they're not the user, and they don't think as us, as consumer, even as users. Their mental model and their brain is structured very differently than someone in UX, or someone in your expertise. So we need both. We need you, we need them. And then you want to see what kind of knowledge they have when it comes to accessibility. You hope that they do. I had someone on my developer at Sunwing who were very familiar with accessibility, and then I had also someone on my team who was very, very interested in general about accessibility. And that was really her area, that her little baby, and she would really do a lot of self-taught and learning on the coding and accessibility as well. So I would say it's better sometimes if it's not just all one person, so that you have multiple ways or multiple angles and several people that can actually help to ensure. And I think together it comes a better product. Some of the main components. So I mentioned to you, accessibility for your assignment, you can pick one area and really focus on. So sorry, on screen is not 100% pretty. I don't know why, but the first item is the focus indicator. So the focus indicator I don't know that we will talk a lot about it, but it's really, when you come to a website and you come to the homepage, it's where does it start? Where is the focus at the time that you come to your page? So where is the cursor, and what is the first element that the code will say? This is going to be the starting point in your first focus. Perhaps for some site it may be the logo, or perhaps for some site it's actually the first menu item that you have. If we go to roots, let's see that we go to roots, Canada, it's hard visually to know where the focus is at that particular point. And I think when I was using one of this Wave, I believe, which is one of the extension that you can download from on Google Chrome, I think the focus was the enjoy free shipping on all orders $75 and over. So, but it's again, it's a starting point. If that's the focus, then if you tab, what's going to happen is you want to use your tab and see where you end up with your tab. But it's the initial, it's where you focus. Think of your cursor, it's where the focus is when you come. So that will be your starting point as a screen reader. So I think there are a few readings that really talk about the focus and indicator and how you can assess for it. But that's one. The second thing is tabbing. What is the experience when you actually tab to a website, and what are the menu elements that are selected, and what is that experience? Tabbing, and some people are limited and they are forced to use tabbing. And I will think that when you use a screen reader, you probably also use just the tabbing. So I have an article that talks about web accessibility in mind, keyboard accessibility, and it has a lot more detail about what the keyboard accessibility is, and the focus indicator is one of them. And then the developer have to do something specific to show that something is in focus and something is clickable or not clickable, and also be able to read the element that is the focus is on. So if it's roots Canada as is the first item that is being focused on the screen reader when someone comes to roots, well, it needs to tell that it's roots logo, and it probably says that it's the roots navigation, it's the home navigation too, so that as the screen reader user, you probably built a mental model that home is home and home is to the starting point of, again, they don't have anything that says left, top left for them, right? They don't have that notion. So they have to remember home is usually your very first starting point. So over time, they have developed a convention as well. But if I go to roots, I'm going to share that screen with you. So focus is one of the elements, and we're going to look at roots. Then let's see what happens when I tab. So roots has no even visual indicator that tells me that when I tab, what is where the focus is. And now for your assignment, you will pick structure, Longy, or Good Foods, or any of your sites that you have done. You will tab. So let's see, you will use a site that you have done all your assignments so far. Okay, so here, obviously, the web-aimed web accessibility website, which I will share with you, is accessible. So if you want to see good example of accessibility website, these sites, the regulation, the site that talks about the law will be accessible, and you would hope. If they're not, they'll be really, really in big trouble. So if you see, when I enter webam.org, which you can see now, there's nothing really on screen. But if I do a first tab, I have something called skip to content. Do we all see this? That is an accessibility requirement so that people are able, the reader or the user is able to skip to places. So now I also have a visual indicator, but if I'm visually impaired, it makes no difference to show me visually that I'm here. But the screen reader at this particular moment is probably hopefully telling me that my focus is on skip to main content. And close your eyes, and then if you have a screen reader, it will tell you skip to main content, and I would probably tap to it. Then it will tell you the focus is on web aim, web accessibility in mind. And this image absolutely have to have something in the alt tab that will say web accessibility in mind, logo, main web aim, I would assume. Then you may say, well, this is not what I want, but maybe I'm going to click here. And I know at that point as a screen reader, I'm starting all over again. But if I tab then, what is the next element is services. So they are doing a good job because they're showing us where we are, right? Feedback, providing visibility of the system, but not all sites will do that. In fact, with Roots, it's really difficult to know what my focus is. And with Roots, when I go, and when I tab, new for this month, you see, I have nothing visual, right? So if I compare to WebAIM and Roots, they don't do a good job, Roots, of showing me that I'm actually under services. So here I can tab, and then if I tab and I select services, then I know as a screen reader, it will probably going to tell me that I am under services, I have collaborating. Now, if I tab again, under services, going back, I can search, I can go home, I can go services, and then I go to, it takes me to the links. That will be your tabbing and the tabbing experience. And there's specific things that you need to be able to support or not support. So that is one thing that you could focus on the site, on your site, and see what happens with tabbing. The second thing that you may want to do, or another topic would be that maybe you want to pick the screen reader. What is the experience when we are on the screen reader as well? Now, tabbing and navigation go very hand to hand. So the navigation order, so as a keyboard user navigates through the page, the order in which interactive items receive keyboard focus is important. So the order and how quickly do I access the most important content on web aim for you, and then telling the user where they are and what's available for them, and the screen reader will tell them is really, really critical. No sound testing. So there are, what if I cannot hear? Then you have to design for someone who cannot hear. What is that experience? So that could be another element that you may want to depend on. And the voiceover. So the voiceover is the screen reader. If I am not able to read, then I need to have a screen reader. So I've also inserted a link that talks about the screen reader and what are some of the requirements or the things that you have to pay attention when it comes to the voiceover. But JAWS is a voiceover, and then it will read to you the options. So I would say that's probably one that you probably want to play with for your assignment. I think it's one of the probably most exciting elements. Then the header as well. So the header and the voiceover, the headers. Do we know what headers? Well, we know what the headers are, but the headers on a website have a clear tag in HTML called H1 to H6. So your code has to have, HTML code has to say, this is a header, H1, and then it will read the header. So that we know the importance of header because it will tell the consumer or the user, this page is about this, and then follow, and then it visually communicates hierarchy. But in this case, if I'm visually impaired, I'm using a screen reader, at least I get a sense that this is the main page. And really, you should only have one H1 on all pages, and then you'll have subheader, subtitle, H2, H3, up to H4, and you have to be consistent, which tells you a sense of hierarchy as well. So the screen reader needs to be able to know that there are headers, and then H1, as I said, you should only have one. And then as a user, if you're using the screen reader you can't see, then it will help you to understand the main elements and the sub elements that you may have. So I'm assuming here from blog popular resources are probably H2, and then you have some H3, and then we also have some navigation element to the bottom. Contact, about us, RSS, they probably have a very unique code that also tells that these are navigations, and they're not part of the page, but they're also navigation elements that you have access to. Now, if think of it, if as a user, I want to go to About Us and I'm tabbing, I need to go through a lot of elements on this page. I hope that there's a way that I can skip to About Us if I want, or voice and speak for it, or search if I have access to a mouse too. But again, it depends on what impairment that I have. But if I'm tabbing, it's probably tabbing every element one after another. So let's see. And then it goes to contact us, and then I can obviously tab back. So my website, my wave, and then so you see the order that it's actually going. If I just want to do website address, check my accessibility. And this site is really good. You can actually use it to do your check for your accessibility, and it will give you a report on many things. So that is also acceptable. You can use a tool, and there are multiple tools, and there's several that I give you that you can actually run through your website for your each individual website. So this assignment is a group, and then you're going to run an audit on your on the existing site that you work with since the beginning, not the roots one, but the structured, and then you can use a site audits tool that will give you, but you will need to understand and be able to make sense of what the tool will spit out to you. But they're free and it's really, really easy. So I don't know where I've put this particular tool, but I did put one of the tools that you can do your assessment or your test automatically using the tool. Alternative text for images. So I think I have some more example that talks about it. Contrast and label in a field. So contrast. So we need to have the proper contrast so that people can see and distinguish between text and background. The contrast tool will give you that. And there's a specific ratio that you have to follow. So according to the W3C, the contrast ratio between text and this background should be at least 4.5 to 1. Conformance level AA. So there's conformance level AA, and AAA, which I do not know all of the details. But if you go to the W3C, you will learn more about it. Then text background, if you're using a Mac, you can use the contrast app. So Mac has a contrast app, apparently. I'm not a Mac user, that you can see, and maybe some of you are using it. This tool will calculate the score for both regular and larger text sizes in different comfortable conformance level. And then I've read in one of the documentation that you know how we all do, we increase the screen size, we can increase the size of our screen. One of the rules says that you should not lose anything on screen that is important up to 200 up to 200% of magnifying. And I think that this site is compliant. I'm going to say all of my options. And if I go beyond the 200, then I'm actually losing some links as well, some options from the page. So it's going very, very detailed, but I will not be quizzing you on of those details, but it's for you to know about it. So contrast was one that I have given these examples. The second one as well, or other aspect that you may want to focus on, is the label and instruction with text field. So it's a simple one, but we've seen that. We've seen that some sites will actually put the label in the field. And then what happens when, as a screen reader, I don't even know that it reads it. But it's bad usability too, because when I put my cursor in, if I put my cursor here and I don't have the label address, but it says enter address only and there's no label, then when I put my cursor, it's actually going to remove enter address. And I'm going to go, what am I supposed to enter here? What is the acceptable format? So it's bad usability. But we're saying here, using placeholder text as label are one of the biggest mistakes when designing a form, but not just for people that have an impairment, but all of us. So we might be tempted to go with this strand because it saves real estate and it looks clean, but sometimes that's bad choices. And I will say you better to stay conventional and use the actual label at the top of your field. And it's good for the screen reader, and it's good for all users. And there's and then people who use screen reader usually, as we know, navigate through the form using the tab key to jump through the form controls. The label elements are read for each form control, and any non-labeled text that's below is usually skipped over. So there's a chance actually that they may skipped over some of the forms as well. And then using alternate, so you may want to pay attention to the forms on your site and see how they've been designed. But if you use one of the tools to do the assessment, they will tell you. And then using alternative text for images, you need to have text that says what the image is, and it's within the alt attribute of the image. So I'm sure you've all loaded images and you've all been told use alt tab, alt, put a description in your alt that says something what the image is, so that the screen reader will hear the web and be able to read them. Then I put some slide about accessibility audit statement of work. So I put a template too for the statement of work. Here's what happened with when you do a accessibility audit. You're not going to be, and it's very similar with our heuristic evaluation or usability testing. We're not going to do a usability audit phase. They suggest two phases. You do one phase, you do your typical or most visited pages, and you actually run your visual accessibility visual audit. There's a visual audit element. I'll show you the checklist that you can do, like similar to what we just did, like in terms of showing the focus, the alt tab, the forms. But in phase one, you probably want to do that, and you also want to pick one particular flow that is probably the most visited, and maybe the flow that brings you more revenues and more money. And then you run a visual check, and you run the tool. You run your pages through the tool. Then you're gonna get a lot of insights. The chances are those insights will probably gonna be everywhere on the site. So if you fix, and if you're able to fix in one places, let's say that the code has been structured, that you can make some changes to one piece of code that will cascade to other changes, then you're probably going to be fixing a lot of areas. But in phase one, you probably want to run your audit to a limited set, and then hopefully you will gain, other pages will gain, and then you can do a phase two in a more extensive audit. You will not do all of this, any of this for this assignment, but this is if you were in real life and you wanted to see if your entire site is accessible. Now use a tool that is available, like free accessibility tool, and then I'm hoping that it probably looks at all pages, but they may not look at all pages either as well. So, and I don't know how they're making the decision of which one to look, or perhaps they look at all sites and all pages. So it is the law. Companies have no choice to have accessibility. And you said that you've heard before, so that's good. And so a lot of it should not be new. In terms of the audit, pick one aspect that you want to focus on, and then go a little bit deeper and use the tool to be able to do your assessment. I'm trying to see where I've put my link to one of the tools. I'm not seeing it now, but I have put a usability guidelines for accessible website that has 150 pages from Jacob Nielsen. I put here a JPEG that shows you the different type of impairment. So auditory, your responsibility is you have to have alternative to audio content. So if someone cannot hear, they're obviously not using the screen reader, you have to have the closed caption, right, as a minimum. If they're visually impaired, for people that are blind, your page structure, alternative text is really important. Your low vision, color contrast, and also color blindness. If you're using color to communicate information, then you have to rethink that. So on your site, you may want to look at color, and do they use color to communicate information? If they do, then that means that they're probably not accessible. And then cognitive impairment, the memory, so they have challenges to remember things. Make sure that you give them what they need when they need it, and then you use recognition, not recall, and recognition from a system or from a code or from a reading as well. That's probably tougher to assess. And I share with you the impairment summary. So we just looked at it. WCAG guidelines. So I said earlier, your accessibility requirement will fall into perceivable, operable, understandable, or robust. So there are more information, but the WCAG guidelines give in more depth. And one of the readings that I give you will go into that as well. So I don't know which one, if that's one. Okay, so this first link is your first demo link. Is the link where you can actually run your test. So I'm going to label that particular one. So this is your free tool. I'm just going to add a label for free tool. Free audit tool is your first link. We also talk about, and we all know this, you should avoid click here, because imagine as a reader, click here. They don't even know what click here, and they don't know, they can't see what's before and where click here is in. They don't know what's around it, right? We know it's bad for even us as users, but you have a lot of business to do it. But imagine if it's a screen reader. At least we have something around the click here. We know where it's at in context. But as a screen reader, you don't have no idea what you're about to just click on. The demo that I show you before and after actually show an example of some of that too as well. If you want to choose roots, you can use roots if you want. So I'm not really attached. You could use roots because you're going to be doing some work on them. But, and then let's see what happens if I put roots con. So this is a free report, and it will give you the free report about your site. So that could be your starting point, and maybe you will say, well, we think maybe there's something we want to spend more time on, and they give you a score, it gives you X, and then what things are or not, and you can actually click on them. So it's pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over with you for questions, which I'm sure you have or you will have after you do the reading. But are there is there anything about accessibility right now that you would want to ask or you would want to get clarity on? Is this a repeat from what you had seen before? Okay, but you had no assignment, right? And did you even do an audit or looked at running an audit using one of the free tools, or even installing a screen reader or using a technology to do the voiceover? And I'm saying maybe from your phone, I haven't even tried it, but maybe from your phone, from a smartphone, there's an option that you can say like mimic the experience of a screen reader as well. Okay, so 123. This is it for today. So what I suggest is you actually go through the material, and then tomorrow you'll have a possibility to work for the 2 hours will be about accessibility and working on lab items. So you're gonna have the option to work on roots, work on accessibility, or work on your on the big project. So when I say roots, I think I need to be clear. There is the final usability testing project for roots, but there's also the research plan in replacement of the unmoderated usability testing, which I know some of you wanted to share with me some of their work, which I can do now. And then there's accessibility. So that is what's left. And then tomorrow you have 2 hours of lab to work on them. So please go through the material and then at least the reading. And tomorrow, then maybe we can answer any of your questions. I'd like to bring your attention to one other reading or material that I have loaded that I think that you will benefit. It's a long PowerPoint, but it goes in good details. It's how to conduct an accessibility audit on the lab. I think it has 151 pages. So this is a real case, I believe, on WestJet that a company had done. So and I'm actually using Sarah English was very kind to share with me some of her material. So I think this is her material. And why is this not showing to you? I just want to show you this so that you don't miss it. Okay, so I'm gonna, yes, so this is something that Sarah English has shared. And then she shows how we do visual inspection. So it is under lab. It's one of the lab items. Then there's also in the lab item an accessibility audit planning checklist that I share with you that you can also use for your audit. So there are things that we can look visually. So obviously you enter the site, you can see the focus, you can see the navigation. Are there clicks, links that are not clear? So I'd like for you to look at that. Yes, I can give any feedback to anybody after. And then, but I would encourage you to also look at the checklist that I have put on the lab. It's called checklist, accessibility audit checklist. It will give you some tips on the visual check. But it does cover what visually you could do. So click here, links not being indicated are also accessibility. So if it doesn't show that they're linked, then the chances of the reader doesn't know that they're links. So that is, you know, as bad as for us than for the reader. But the checklist, you should all look at the checklist, and then it will tell you visually what you can do. Look at some of the code and then the color contrast. It talks about the keyboard navigation, the code sniffer, and screen reader. It also says something about PDFs and videos, checking for accessibility on videos as well. So I really encourage you to look at that little checklist, which let me just show you what it looks like. And I want to share application. Okay. So this is a checklist that is on the lab. It says visually what you can do. So you visually, and then you can look at labels. If the labels are descriptive, the alt text, then the color contrast, code sniffer. It will look into the code and tell you what's wrong with the code. But I'm hoping that the little accessibility tool that I showed you actually will do that also. But again, pick one item that you think that you would like to be to go in more depth, and then that's really the item that you will pick. Now, what I also want in the assignment, so I didn't put we didn't really cover the assignment very quickly. It's 15 points, and I want you to share how this assignment will change your perspective for your next design project, or what has this made you aware of that you were not aware of. And I'm sure there will be something. If not, then that means you haven't really done it seriously. That is also 5 marks out of 30 marks, I think, total for 15%. So I'm around for questions about the root research project. Otherwise, you're free to go. Enjoy your afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow for lab. Tomorrow is lab all afternoon. Thank you. So who wants to go first? And enjoy your afternoon for those of you that are leaving. Great, so I'm here. So who would like to share? I know Lillian and Miriam, you wanted to share some of your research plan. So anybody?
Hey, I don't know if Lillian is here yet.
Okay.
I think like her internet isn't working, so Jade and I can just like show you our project.
Yes, please show me.
Okay. So Jade, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. I can just send you the link of our.
You want to share? Can you share?
Yeah, I can screen share too. 1 second. Docs. Trying to find the doc. There's so many that we have going on at this point, and they're not even organized anymore. Like.
Or if there's a link, then maybe you want to send me the link, and I can maybe click on it too.
Oh yes. Okay. I'll do both. Yeah. Share. Anyone with the link can edit. Okay, copy link. Sending it to you. Can I send it like directly to you? Send a chat message. There it is.
Yes, send it through the chat here.
Okay, gotcha. I send it
Right.
to like the direct chat too.
Good. I have here.
So it's like the very where is it? It's like the very
Oh,
bottom page is like what we have so far. And like we just have like I don't know, like basic stuff right now. We just wanted to make sure that the
We're
sections that we're including
yeah.
are good. Jay, do you want to add anything?
No, we just want to know if we're going in the right direction with what we have so far.
I think you're going too detailed. It sounds like you're going to the direction of doing a usability testing.
Oh.
So usability testing can be one method, research method that you would choose, but you could also have maybe A/B testing, usability testing. Maybe you want to do interview. Maybe you want to do an online survey. You don't need to give me the details of one methodology, but you just have to tell me what methodology would you pick, perhaps in which order, and why you even pick those methodology. So here it looks like you're going through to a specific methodology,
So what
or not.
sections should
I
we
don't
take
know.
out then?
So, okay. Oh, research methodology. Primary research, secondary. So maybe you will do A/B testing. Yeah, maybe you'll do a survey. Maybe you'll do secondary research, or you would do. So, okay, I don't need to have interview guide. You don't need to have the details of interview guide, but perhaps if you're conducting interviews, then you could see we are going to conduct interviews with stakeholder or participants. Uh, okay, okay.
So just say
Yeah.
who would maybe have interview with who? Like,
Yes. So yes, maybe with the client, right? Maybe you're gonna
okay.
have a kickoff meeting, and then you're gonna. But you don't need to give me details of like what the survey
Mhm.
or what will be in the survey. But if you say we're gonna do survey, maybe you're gonna have a survey at the payment step because maybe you want to know if the payment step is a challenge or not. For on the real website, right? For people who are actually visiting and making it to the payment page, and that's it. You don't need to give me more. Um, so you need to be high level, but at the same time, if you say a survey, then who will be presented the survey and when, right? But you don't need to give me go as far as we did for usability testing, where you actually show me your full test scenario or even like the details of all of the participant in the context of a usability testing. So
Well,
you have to like see, can you step up even more from this and say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And perhaps I'm going to give you a scenario. Maybe you're going to say, we are actually first, we're going to look at data, right? Maybe we want to look at the buy flow data and see in the buy flow, where are people abandoning? And maybe we're going to put a survey there as well and see why are people abandoning. And that's really all I would need to know. And this is all on the real website, right? But I would say everything will start maybe with a kickoff. You're going to have a kickoff with the client and say, what are really the challenges that you heard? Can we have access to analytics? Or you will ask them to share analytics and then you will look at the analytics. That is what I need to see. I don't need to see the exact material, if that makes any sense. So when
um,
I see participants here, uh, I feel that we're already going in depth. So maybe you're going to have a survey and there will be a survey for people that are in. Maybe you're going to have an interview with your client to understand what do they know about the online buy flow today. You could also see we're just going to do very deep down research on the online buy flow where people are buying, which is pretty much what this assignment is for anyway. People are
so
have them
what
converting.
would you like to see? Like how long should it be then? Like it sounds like it would be really short based on like the things that we have to take out. Like maybe like a pager. Like would it still be a page or two?
I think it's going to be between, like, I'm just saying that, like 2 to 5 pages.
2 to 5 pages. So what I'm confused about like how we could like fill those 2 to 5 pages if like we're taking out so many. Like what would be in it?
Well, 2 pages is not long, right? I'm saying I think minimum is probably you have probably 2 pages.
Okay.
Okay.
You already have a lot of pages. Do you know what I mean? Like it's if you repeat what the case study is and what you will do, I think it's hard to not have 2 pages. But like the background, you can still have the background and what your objective of your study will be. And then I think participant and methodology. Then your methodology. Think of this. This is your method. This plan is a bit of your methodology of what will be the method you're going to use to find out why are people not converting, right? That's really the
Yeah.
big question. People are coming, but they're not converting. So you have a conversion challenge. They're coming to Roots, they're not buying. So we already know we're going to focus on the buy flow. So you may want to say our strategy is we're focusing on the buy flow, and then we're going to do X, Y, Z in the buy flow. You are describing the methodology to find out, to go about finding out why people are dropping. So you don't need a section that calls methodology. This is your methodology. Perhaps it's what are the tools that you're going to use in the sequence that you're going to use them. So you're not
pretty much
you're actually
methodology.
Hmm?
So the purpose of the whole thing is methodology, so which is why we wouldn't need to put it into its own section, you mean?
Yes, exactly. It's you kind of telling me, Mariam, what are we gonna do? Well, it's like it's your method, your approach, right? Your research approach to find out. I will give you a hint. The first thing you need to do in this study will be to look at existing analytics of the buy flow and see where are people really abandoning. Who is this limited to maybe one device? I don't know, maybe mobile. So you're gonna have a step of doing analytics. You're obviously not gonna do it in real life right now, but you're gonna see we're gonna do analytics. Then you can see, assuming that it's we don't have a lot of data, or we know that it's specifically at the payment step that people are abandoning. Maybe we're going to put a survey at the payment step to find out why people are abandoning. And then you'll say maybe we're going to do also, we're going to look to see if there's some A/B testing opportunities at payment page that we will do. So and that's really, you don't need to do more details of each activities. The goal of this exercise is I want you to start thinking about beyond usability testing and get a sense that there are other things that are available and understand maybe what those things are, in which order you would do them, and then use methods that we've been talking in class.
Okay.
And that will be satisfying. So I think it's going to be hard to be away from 2 pages minimum.
Okay. So
Yeah.
because we couldn't find any slides for the research plan because it's so different from the test plan. So we were just doing our own independent research, trying to figure out what a research plan is, and and then like the parts that you see, like the 7 sections that we outlined, were just what we found
Yes.
on the internet. But if we can just basically like shave that down to like a background, you
Methodology.
don't need to interview questions, and then it's mainly focusing on the methodology.
Yes, it's really focusing on the methodology. So the interview
Okay.
guide would not need to have and see an interview guide. We're assuming here that you will do so you're right. You're absolutely right. Have you all done research methodology course yet or not?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So it's okay to guide to use what you may have found on the internet, but I would say interview guide is either too detailed. Participants, it's more who's going to be involved in this methodology. But if you do an online survey on the existing Roots website, well, you're surveying the real visitor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're on the right track. If anything, you were going in depth where you don't need to.
Okay.
And treat it as you're explaining to me the methodology that you will follow to be able to get answers. Why are people abandoning? Really think about what could we do to help to understand why people abandoning. People are coming to Roots, but they're abandoning. Why?
Okay.
And it starts with, you would do a step where you will look at analytics, and that is primary research. Analytics, looking at analytics, data, asking Roots to share data with you, right?
Gotcha.
But you don't need to.
It's all just like theoretical, obviously, because we're not actually going to be doing it.
Exactly.
It's just like what we think we're going to do, and like the entire point of the document is just to show Roots Canada like how we plan on solving their problem. and it shouldn't be more
Yes,
than that.
exactly. It's
Okay.
what do we plan that we think we should do to get
Okay.
answers? To get
Okay.
answers.
Gotcha. Thank
That's
you so
really
much. That
good.
helps a lot, Yves.
Okay, good. You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Anything else?
Jade, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. Though I think I understand what we have to do.
Awesome. Perfect. And I'm around more if you need, okay? Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Now,
you. Bye.
thanks. Well done. Bye, Marianne. Bye, Jade. Okay, I just saw a chat from other students. It's this. Okay, it's the same with the individual component, right? So, Destiny, what do you mean by the individual component?
I'm talking about the roots one.
Mm-hmm. The research plan.
Yes.
So,
So
yes.
I started it and I was kind of doing the same thing. Like I was gonna do like the interview guide and methodology and like research background and stuff like that. So I
Yeah, just think of this document or this assignment. You're explaining to me the methodology that you will follow to be able to get answers to roots. Why are people not buying? Why are people not successful at converting online? So it is the methodology. So you don't need a section necessarily about methodology. You can have a background that says, okay, so Roots has hired us to help them to find out why are people not buying. Then here's what we plan we're going to do. We're first going to review data. Maybe we're going to put a survey on some specific step in the buy flow. Maybe we're going to do interviews with maybe internal stakeholder. Have they done a similar study before? And what did they learn? Was anything changed? And I think we've mentioned that the design has changed, right? The design was changed 6 months ago. So I have a feeling they've actually removed some good features or functionality on the buy flow. Maybe you would want to find out why. What have they removed? What was it before? Is there anything? That would be in your initial analysis / interview with the business. But you could do survey, you could do some maybe testing perhaps. Maybe you would do some usability testing too. You could, but you're not going to tell me the details to the usability testing and how many people. Like that would be too detailed.
okay. And sorry, you still want us to go through like one of the okay, actually I'll change my question, I guess. For the Roots Canada one, because in
The
the brief,
research or the usability testing? The big project, the final project, or the research project
the
plan?
research plan,
Okay.
or sorry, yeah, the research one. For that one, it says that Roots would use Google Analytics and Optimizely. So you want us to actually go through up until go through those two like websites up until like you'd have to pay for it or something.
No, I don't want you to go and pay for anything. What I'm saying, why I gave you this is I told you, Roots has Google Analytics, so they have a lot of analytics that you could have access to. If Roots really hire you to do this study for them or find out why are people abandoning, one of your first thing that you would do is you would ask them for gain access to Google Analytics to be able to look at the current data and get insights from the real data on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's why I told you about Google
Oh,
Analytics.
okay.
Now,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Optimizely, Google, that means Roots has an A/B testing tool. So you'll say, well, we could be running some A/B testing tool on specific steps that we see that there are the conversion, people are dropping off, people are not buying. When they get to that step, they abandon. Then maybe you say, we will look at opportunities to do A/B testing using Optimizely. Dang, done. But you would need to tell me, is there a specific step that you would want to do the A/B testing? And if you're very adventurer and you want to go further, you can say, we think the payment page has the following problem. We'll do an A/B testing for those following problems. But you don't have to, but that maybe is a way to get 100% of the marks.
Okay. Yes,
Is
thank you.
this helping? It's really thinking about an outline. Think of this as a outline research plan that you will do, that you would propose to Roots to find out why are people abandoning, but you don't go in depth for each one elements, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
it's like you're writing almost an outline of a report or of a research paper research, but you're not doing the actual research. So
Right.
you almost write coming up with an index, but of course you need to have a bit of information under each one's, right? And why as well. Like, why are you suggesting these things? I don't want you to just give me a list of bunch of methodology, but you need to, give me a sense of you understood or you made choices because of X or Y or Z.
Okay.
So if
Thank
you
you.
say we're going to do A/B testing, then give me a sense of why, and also when, in which order. Do we start with usability testing? Do we do A/B testing? Can we do in parallel? These things. So I want to see if the class has been able to integrate. Think of usability testing, but think of outside of usability testing, and think about some of the other research tools that I've mentioned, and then you can use on Google to research more if you want on other things too. But don't install Google Analytics. Don't install Optimizely. These are they're payable, not Google Analytics, but Optimizely is payable. Are we better?
Yes, that makes so much more sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy your afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye. Anybody else has questions?
Hi, Yves. I think you answered a lot of the questions that Anya and I had just then, but I think one of the things that we were going to integrate into our report too was sort of like do an initial like high-level heuristics analysis. Is that appropriate?
Yes, it's appropriate. I would say make sure you don't go too far in one place and forget the rest. But if you feel, Elizabeth, that you have a good outline of what you think the big plan will be, and you say, we've done a little bit of heuristic evaluation to a bit guide you, that's even better, because then I will know you're very targeted, right? In fact, I kind of expect everybody to do a little bit of a quick heuristic evaluation and say, you know what, for this research, because it's impossible to be able to look at the entire website. Like, we're talking about people are just not buying. They're not buying. So we already know it's a buy flow. It's when they get to the buy flow. And maybe you're going to say, Yves, our focus is going to be past the checkout payment, because we've done, heuristic, and we feel that there are issues here. And then we're just going to do some online survey when people are at the payment page. Maybe you can say we're going to do some A/B testing, and that's really our focus. And remember, I talk about backward, right? It's always better to start from the last step, because why bring so many? And this is what they're doing. They say they're bringing as many visitors, but people are getting to the step that everybody has to get to and everybody abandons. Why bring more people if that step is broken? Then you work backward. Okay, so that is the approach. Yes, so the answer is yes. Yes.
Okay, so we could do like a general overview heuristics analysis of, would you recommend in that case, because we know it's the one step, should we just do it for that one step, or should we do it for the whole buy flow? I was thinking the whole buy flow.
It's really up to you, but I think that you're probably going too deep, to be honest.
Okay,
like,
so just the end step.
I'm trying to save you time here too, because this is what, 15% of the mark, is it? I want to make sure that you have enough time to do your final big report and also the accessibility one. So I would be okay if you say, Yves, and in fact, I think you could say we chose obviously the buy flow, and then from the payments back, and then you could say we're going to look at all the data about the payments with the clients, and then we're going to do some A/B testing maybe on the payment page. If you've looked at the payments page and you already have a sense of what maybe you would want to do as an A/B test, you could mention it, but that would even be too far. But I wouldn't go, I think it's hard not to do what we do, not to look at it from a heuristic point of view when you go through that buy flow and you go through checkout and payment. And maybe it's easy, you're going to be able to say, well, we know there's an issue here because of, they don't say this, but really, and that's probably all of what you need to say. I don't expect you to go very deep, because I'm afraid you're going to run out of time for the other ones.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know, Anya, if you have anything to add to that, but that's all the questions from me.
Perfect. And then there's just the two of you working on this report, right? Have you informed the other participants? Okay. Anybody else? Anything else?
Hi, Eve. I just sent you.
Hi.
Yeah, I just sent you in the box chat.
Perfect.
You saw it.
Yes, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, I just want to know if I am going into too much detail as you say or no, because I also talk a bit about heuristic evaluation as well. I just don't know if it's too much.
Did you focus your heuristic font on the biflow?
I focus, yeah, mainly on the biflow and also a little bit of other related element as well, like the promotion of the homepage and checkout component as well, and the buttons for the homepage as well, and the rest is the biflow. Oh no, not actually the biflow, but it's like the page rather than the flows. I focus on the page rather than the flows.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I haven't read through all the details, but I can say maybe you went in more depth, but that's okay. So maybe what you want to do is, and I don't know if you were listening to all the feedback that I gave, but you've done some heuristics, so you've kind of done a little bit of the work. You've done more than you needed to for the heuristic. But I don't think that you need more details about heuristic. Now, what you may want to say, you talk about A/B testing, you've talked about that you're going to do A/B testing, you've done some Google Analytics, and what I would say is, can you frame all of this in really the buy flow? Don't erase and don't remove anything that you've done, but think about the buy flow, because really people are finding the buy flow, but they're not buying, right? They're not converting. Maybe, and I don't know if you talk about the payment step. Is it maybe at the payment step? Is it the checkout? Is it, but you've talked about A/B testing, which is good, but can you make sure that it's framed in the buy flow?
I thought about that as well, but the thing is that I see the buy flow of Roost Canada doesn't have any problem at all. So I try to focus much more on the UI design of them, like how they align elements and how they design them to like get more attractions, like get more, how the UI element can seduce the users. Because
Yes.
I see the flow doesn't have any problem at all, so I don't think there's a lot of thing I can analyze here. So that's why I do them like this.
Okay, here's what I will not challenge, but I will plant some seeds for you to think about. Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like maybe there are no issues, but what if there are specific issues? Because people are dropping off now, but they were not before as much. They just went through a redesign. So if I remember this case study, I give you hypothetically, I've said 6 months ago they've changed the design, and right now they see the same amount of visitor, and perhaps the same amount of visitor that actually enter the buy flow, but fewer are converting. So there is obviously a problem inside the buy flow, because the same amount of people that are coming into the buy flow or starting a purchase is the same, but a lot fewer customer are actually buying. So there is a problem. So we cannot say that the buy flow does not have an issue. It does. Assume the same amount of people are actually entering the buy flow form, but a lot less are actually buying. There is something happening. So your challenge is, or my question to you is, assume that there is a problem. How are you going to go and find out there is a problem once they actually say, I want to buy? There is a problem happening from the moment that they say, I want to buy that article. In the past, before the redesign, more people were able to buy. So assume that there is a problem, but you don't know where. So maybe that's going to change a little bit of what you've done, but you don't need to do more heuristic. You don't need to even tell me, I really think the problem is on the payment page. Perhaps you will say, we want to find out if the problem is on the payment page. Then you will say, what can we do? Then you're going to look at analytics. And you've already said we're going to look at Google Analytics, but assume that there is a problem in somewhere in the buy flow. How are you going to go and find out what the problem is in the buy flow?
Okay. And also when you say the assignment is a hybrid of like a report and a PowerPoint presentation, that you meant like we also need to do the PowerPoint and then include it into the report and all make them like a PDF file in the final version, right?
It's the final. Let me just double check because I don't want to misquote you. There's several things happening. The final format is a PDF.
Included PowerPoint presentations and a report, if you want to move on.
This is an informal research study, so you would submit a summary report only. Okay, hold on.
And I chose Root Canada. Joseph.
Yes, so it's user you can in the press use PowerPoint. So it's you can deliver your findings in PowerPoint. But if this is what you've done, if you've done it in words, it's okay. But I was trying to make it even shorter and easier for you. You could put everything into PowerPoint. But when I say it's a hybrid, make sure that you have you have the sections that you have are similar to what you would have in a report. Like, what is the summary? Did we, what were objectives? What are we going to do? What did we do? What are we going to do? And then have a set something that you will probably going to be writing a report. So you kind of you're kind of putting into the table of what you would do. And so it's hard to not have elements that look like an element of a report. So if that makes any sense, but use PowerPoint. It will probably, because I think it's probably just a matter of taking sections from your document.
I guess I'm gonna just like study like this. If like really PowerPoint is not really something necessary or like mandatory to do that, but as you said, I can maybe shorten at some point to make it like like more solid, like to present to you about the important point that I wanted to show you when we're getting into the presentation.
Exactly. I said PowerPoint so that it will be lighter for you. Yeah. But if you want to continue in that, you're okay. But it's to make it a little bit lighter. But you still need, there's a minimum of slides that you need to have, right? And say what we're trying to do. Here's what I think that I would do in terms of a methodology and the timing for those methodology. And like you kind of like writing this to convince Roots to sign up to hire you to do the research. Think of that. You kind of want to convince them, hey, hire us to do this, to execute on this plan. And a PowerPoint usually is all of what you need. And then you have the content. So don't do more heuristic, you're good. Just frame it in, there's an issue in the buy flow. And I'm telling you, there is an issue because the same people are entering. But since the new design, people are not buying. There's something broken. What are you going to do to find out why, where, and how it's broken? That's really what you want to outline to me, a methodology that you would do.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, Yves.
Good, you're on the right track. So if anything, you probably have done more, but that's okay. Don't delete. I don't think you want to remove anything, but make sure that you're assuming there's an issue in the buy flow and how you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I'll shorten them and like rephrase all the things that you have said about me. I'll reconsider everything. Thank you so much.
Who else are you with on your team, Phuong?
Only me. I do this on myself.
Are you doing it by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel that better to do on group because I have more time to like think by myself better than doing in group. That's a reason.
Good, no problem. You're on the right track.
And I also have something to ask about the next question that we have. Like, does that question like we come back to the same group as we had before, or we frame another group?
Which question? I'm sorry, I'm not following.
For the last assignment that we have, you said that the assignment for group project, right? So
yeah, the big final Roots.
Yeah.
Who were you with? Who did you do your initial? Which team were you on again, Phuong? Remind me.
Liz, Anya, and Kirill. So I'm gonna come back to them, or I'm gonna frame another new group. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where. Well, make sure see with them if you're a part of the team or if you're not part of the team. But it's going to be hard if you're by yourself to do the entire project because you're going to need more participants. So talk to them, reach out to them, and say, "Hey, am I doing this part of your group?" And if they say that they're working just them, and I don't know, and I would probably try to understand why. How did the other project go with them with the teams?
Yeah, everything went well. It's just like exactly the same with what they reported to you the last time. And I don't want to add anything from my point of view into that at all, because it's not exact. Like the guys, Kirill, something happened to him, and like we don't have much collaboration with him or something like that. But everything, the rest of it is good.
Okay, well, if I were you, I would reach out to them and say, okay, so because I really think this has to be done in a team. Otherwise, you're by yourself. You're gonna have a lot of session to do.
Yeah.
I would reach out and say, okay, so I'd like to be part of your team. And if they say, well, if you feel that they're not 100% in favor, try to understand why, and then convince them that you will, if they reassure them if they have any concern, right? That would what I would do.
Yeah, I just want to ask, like, what options do I have for the next assignment? That's it. And
I prefer team, because usability testing, you're gonna need to have people there to take notes, and like you're not gonna be able to do by yourself. We rarely do usability testing on our own.
Right, I get it. So it's also reasonable that I can frame a new group to work with, right?
Oh, you can find a new group. Yep.
I got it. That's all I need. Thank you.
Yeah. But you're just gonna need to tell me which group where you end up.
Yeah, for sure. I'll announce you everything that I make a change for that. Thank you so much.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Me too. Have a nice day, sir. Bye bye.
Bye bye.